You are now tuned in to the Public Enemies, aka the Spark Foundation, aka Black DX, aka the Authors of Paid in Full, aka Undisputed Era Force Ones, aka the High Conics. Yes indeed, yes indeed, yes indeed, yes indeed. Grown-ups in between cheering and babies right about now. Back again, it's your boys, the PE3, with another episode of Behind Enemy Now. Blah, blah, blah. I can't even talk. I'm so busy doing all of this over here, playing with the soundboard and all of that, trying to get fresh and trying to get this thing right. Let's get it right though. We are here with Chris Dunn. Let's go ahead and move you right over here. I like to put the guests in the interviews right front and center. So back again, welcome back to the Public Enemies podcast. How are you, sir?
Thank you, guys. I'm pumped to be here. I feel we're really developing a real Sami Zayn bloodline dynamic.
Yo.
Hey, who's gonna look at him though like this? Like,
I like that.
I'll take a bump for any of you guys.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man.
Take a bump, man. What's the bump card like? Is there an actual physical bump card? Like, is there a thing with that? Like, do you like actually get handed one when you get to the PC?
I mean, I wish. I think you really start to notice it when you see people walking backstage. It's like when you see Matt Hardy walk to the ring, his bump card is full.
Oh yeah,
bro. He's been walking like that
in
like 2011.
Yeah.
You should have been turned that bump card in and got his Slurpee.
That's crazy. That is crazy. All right. Well, we talked before. You were on the pod a couple of months ago, but we did want to come back and do like a more long form type interview and kind of pick your brain of about your time in WWE and like writing and stories, and just get some of your perspective of how the backstage environment and certain events are and how they're produced, for real.
Yeah.
So given that you were there for what, like 7 years almost? Was it 7?
No, 5, but
Five.
It felt like 10. So like
It felt like Jesus Christ, my life. Oh my God, gray hairs 2 years in. It was like a presidency.
Yeah, I'm like 27. So looking 55.
So where does your wrestling story start? Like, where does that background come from? Like, were you like a fan growing up, or how do you get into it?
Yeah, I loved it. I grew up. I caught WWE for the first time when I was 7. Actually, so before that, as a kid, I watched, like, as really young, I would watch like the animated Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling show. But then when I was like 7, I caught WWE Superstars for the first time on Saturday morning. I was hooked. And then throughout like the years, like I think like as most people do, like I kind of like went in and out of it. So like once I was kind of like, probably like 11, I stopped until I was like a teenager and the Attitude Era was hopping. And then like, I think like the Attitude Era started to dip, and then I kind of got back into it in college and off as an adult. But like probably the last like 3 or 4 years before I started working at WWE, I was like watching every week. I was really good friends with a couple people who were also like big fans. So like I remember like I was working at a talent agency. So like one of the Rock's agents took me to WrestleMania 29 when he faced Cena. And then I got like free tickets the next night to the night that Dolph cashed in, and everyone's booing the shit out of Randy and Sheamus. So like my buddy and I, instead of watching, I think it was the Final Four that night for the national championship game, like we took the train from New York to Jersey to go see Raw. And it was totally worth it. It was an amazing Raw. It kind of felt like, to me as a fan, like the first Raw where like the night after Mania kind of became like a thing. And yeah, like I always loved it. And like it's, I think it's a lot of content, especially now. It's hard to watch everything when you have a job and responsibilities and stuff. But, I would always, like, if I missed something, I would always check in on it. I really, love the Kevin Owens, Sammy, Seth Rollins generation that was coming in. The Women's Revolution was great. And like, and then like I was doing some work for $7, the Rocks production company, and somebody had the idea when I was helping them with a project, and went to Brian Gewirtz and was like, "Hey, do you think Chris would be a good writer for WWE?" And he gave me a horrified look, not because of me, but like, you know, it's like the writing job is not easy there, and you are not as Twitter will tell you well liked. So yeah, like I took some time to think about like whether I wanted to do it because I knew the high turnover rate of the job and like how crazy it was, and I was like, well, you know, 7-year-old me would like kick my ass if I passed on this, and like even if it's like 6 to like 9 months and I get fired, like hopefully I get to a mania, but like more importantly, like, you know, I went to film school. I was a writer. I kind of got out of that through entertainment. I was like, this is an opportunity for me to get my writing chops back up because I'll be in a writer's room. And I also will be writing every week because it's 52 weeks. And it's like at that time it was 5 hours of TV. And, you know, I was writing all the time.
So what's the interview process for that? Like, do you like you go up to like Stanford and like you sit in the lobby?
Your shit. Like this is why I go to 5th grade. You'll say my best piece of work right here.
So it's really weird. And it's like the weird thing about working at WWE is because like, you know, wrestling comes from carnies in like the 1910s, 1920s. Like, you know, marks, like it's a term because like they were trying to steal people's money. So you have like the natural carny blood of the business, but it's also a publicly traded company. So you have the the Wall Street element of the business, the HR element of the business. So it's like I had Brian put a word in for me. I had applied on the website and like I wrote like a long thing and I made a joke about Hurricane Rana in what I wrote. It was like a little like why I'm interested in the job, like thing that you see like any company does. And like the HR woman had like no idea what Hurricane Rana was. She was like, "Did you misspell hurricane? You should really check your notes."
Yo.
And I don't know if
wow, you're applying for a writer job and you can't even spell hurricane?
Yeah, and then like we were talking about, I brought up NXT and like there was like weird confusion, but like she thought NXT was called Next. So she's no longer at the company, but they gave her 90 days and, you know, best wishes in future endeavors. But yeah, like so I did that, and then I had an interview with Tom Cassiello, who was there for like, I was there for him a few months. He was there for about like 6 years. He played a big deal kind of, and, you know, getting the women on TV in a better way. And was just like a really good writer. He interviewed me on the phone. He sent me, he gave me like what happens in like a lot of entertainment jobs when you're more going for like late night shows. He had me like write a sample, a packet. So I had to pick 5 storylines, or I had to pitch 5 storylines and 5 matches for whatever, and I'm blanking out, the July pay-per-view before SummerSlam 2016. And I had to beat out every week of that for 5 weeks, which is a lot more work than I give people now. And that is hate. Yes. So,
what was one of those stories? What was one of those that you pitched? What was one of those ideas?
I have to look at it. Like one was Miz becoming Intercontinental Champion, and him and Cena. I forget what the issue I pitched with him and Cena having, but essentially Miz doing a weekly Intercontinental Open Challenge every week to try to elevate the title because he was jealous of Cena. But every week he would heal his way out of the match or like intentionally get disqualified. Essentially building to, you know, Cena kind of like talking about putting pride on the title since he's never won the Intercontinental title and going to that match. Yeah, it was like there was a few different things. Like one was that's the one I remember off the top of my head, but I felt at the time that they were kind of getting towards more like wrestling. So I kind of wrote it like a booker, and I kind of got the Iggy going into it that they were wondering that like I'm too sports based as a writer. Can I do entertainment? Can I tell actual like story? So like in the interview, like they kind of asked that a little bit. I met with Ed Koski, Dave Kapoor, and Tom, and I had like some sort of Enzo and Cass pitch where, you know, I essentially kind of went into a personal story about them being brothers to kind of show that I could do that too. It was a very interesting interview. I think they just came off a horrible meeting with Vince. Everyone was incredibly negative. And luckily, like, I think compared to like most people though, like I had a good feeling that that's what the job was. So like I wasn't thrown off because of that. One writer was so negative in that interview that he was no longer allowed to interview people.
Wow.
Yo,
God. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, that person is not named in this, but it's they are no longer allowed to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man,
all right.
Yo, you have anything constructive to say about this guy? Nah, he sucks, man.
Yeah, man.
This is a horrible job.
Like, it's already hard enough, and it's like, bro, like, I gotta do all of this to get chastised the whole time, like, while I'm actually doing the job as well. Like, wow, that's crazy. That is nuts. Okay, so I got a question. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and the potatoes. You feel me? To the isms. You know what I'm saying?
Have that Irish dinner.
Right. So my first question to you is the writing process during like something like a draft. How does that work exactly? Do you like get the information like beforehand, like who's going where and like what brand is taking like which performers or whatever? Because I know they might be having a draft coming up soon. So I'm wondering like how exactly soon in advance would you get that information, and how do you kind of lay that out?
Every year I was there completely varied. It's like those are the highest level conversations. Now, like there have been ones where it's been like planned out months in advance. There have been ones that have like changed even day of. But usually like this is how you want to do it. You pick your top man and woman from each brand. Mm-hmm. And then you pick their opponents for the year and like what are fresh matches and kind of go from there. So like, you know, anytime you have like a Brock meeting, it's like, who are Brock's opponents for the year? Who are Roman's opponents for the year? Charlotte, who's her opponents? Becky. So you kind of just like go through that because you want to make sure that when it comes to a wrestling show, if your top talent is successful, everything else can like work down from that. So that's what you kind of want to do. Like, you kind of want to build around your big tent poles like SummerSlam, Rumble, Mania, and the draft process. But it varies consistently, but you want to try to get ahead of it. And it was like a little different pre-pandemic because you also have to take travel into account for the live events. So it's like you usually want to plan those a couple weeks out so you're not like just burning through money week out. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Lead writers a lot of times will like try to discuss things before presenting it to kind of see like who wants who doesn't. If there's like a trade to make, a suggestion to make, just kind of make sure that both your shows are taken care of. Occasionally, you know, some people will like go rogue. Like there was a lead writer who wasn't great, who I know he was like up there and like he pitched randomly like, hey Vince, why don't we change commentators? And like it's like, oh, we're having that conversation. But like usually you just kind of want to like plan it out with your like the lead writers so they're kind of on the same page so both rosters are working efficiently.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, so Vince, let's talk about Ray J.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Ray
ask you
J.
about Ray J. I want to ask you about Ray J this whole time. How would you book Ray J? I would book him if it was him versus Logan Paul, or like you think you can book like you think it would be easier to book Ray J or Krishan Rock? You know what I'm saying, because she's an actual Power Ranger.
Oh my god.
Well, it's like if you saw how like the how Arrow was in WWE, I'm sure that like the Power Ranger will kill it. But like Ray J, like I think you gotta like I think the whole reason you brought Braun Strowman back was to put Ray J over, then Drew, then Roman.
You know what I'm saying? For the Cardiff, do you imagine?
Yeah. I mean, to quote Michael
Ray
Hayes,
J.
you want to make money or don't you? So.
Singing One Wish in Cardiff instead of American Pie would have been crazy.
That's fire.
Yeah.
That is fire.
So,
hey man,
you were there for like. So you said you were there for 5 years. The whole time you were there, what would you say was the biggest story that you had a hand in producing? I mean, like writing and everything.
I always say the probably the biggest one. Like I was lucky where like when I started, I wasn't producing this, but like the first thing that really was kind of cool was I wrote a lot of promos for the Triple H Seth Rollins story for Mania. And I didn't produce any of that, but like the thing that was like really cool was Hunter was keeping a lot of my stuff, probably like 50 to 70%. He wasn't changing it. He changes a lot of it. But like the thing that like I'm most proud of, and like I always like, was like, thank God this isn't live because I'm fucking up right now. The thing like I kind of like started getting attention at the company with was like working with the Street Profits. I did some stuff with them at NXT, and then Heyman wanted to bring them to Raw. And Heyman went to Joe Bel Castro, who was like the lead writer of NXT. He's like, who should I put the Street Profits with? And he recommended me, and we were together at the hip my whole time, like their whole time on the main roster until I left. Like I think I was at like 3 segments. I was writing with them the whole time, so that's the thing that like kind of caught Vince's attention with me, where like I was going to say didn't know what to make of me. I'll be frank, he did not like me at the time. Once he saw me working with them and like my work with the 24/7 title, and how I was doing with the crossover stuff, like he started to trust me more. But the thing, like the biggest thing that I'm most proud of is like working with Bianca. Like we get that whole year, like it was such a wild thing. Like, and a big part of that working with her was like, I was really worried at the time because I think anybody that sees Bianca Belair kind of like knows like this is she's unbelievable. Like it's kind of undeniable. I think for whatever reason, we had a couple of writers on the team that weren't around that long who I think were having a negative impact on the women's division. And I was also close to Tez. So like I kind of campaigned to like let me work with Bianca. So like we started developing those Mr. Perfect vignettes, and like the goal was like to get her to the main event of WrestleMania year 1, because like we needed new stars, and like it felt like that was legitimately possible. And it was really hard. And like unlike like writing for Tez and Dawkins, like that, a lot of that was like I would write it, they would barely make any changes. Like I got to know them really well, so I knew their voice. Like I had to kind of like go back and like really get to know Bianca to like learn her voice, and like we would hop on the phone together like every week, where I would like give her like, this is a story, this is my first draft of like where the story should go, and like she would keep some stuff, she wouldn't keep some stuff. And like as time went on, like I kind of got to know her voice more, but it was more about like we became friends, and I felt we kind of figured out how to navigate the political elements together, which were very, it's very tough in the women's division because there's, less time. And, I'm just proud, like and when I say like I'm involved in, like, I just want to be like very upfront. Like when it comes to like writers are writers, and like you can write something really great, it's all talent. like the talent, they make or break something. They can take something that was really bad and make it great. They can take something like really great and make it horrible. And she always made anything I gave her great. And we kind of really put a plan together after those vignettes. Like, okay, like how do we get her over with Vince? And luckily, like Bailey was very much about like making Bianca in a great way, and was like such a giving partner to her in that story. But like, we were talking about it, like I remember like, Vince loved the Lashley and Sami Zayn obstacle course. Loved it. And also we had the numbers to back it up because the segment, like you'd be shocked, like stuff that like, wrestling Twitter hates, like arm wrestling contests, obstacle courses, things like that.
Yeah.
They rate well. They rate really well. Like
I've seen on wrestling contests and like the ratings for those, like all right,
pose off with it, like
run it up.
They always do well. It doesn't make sense, but they always do well. And I was like, all right, so this obstacle course, like I went to Bailey's writer and I was like, I think we have something here. And because like it would really get to show off all of Bianca's things to Vince. And it was like, it took a couple weeks. We finally got it to the production meeting. And then like, luckily, like, Adam Pearce and Daniel Bryan got like heavily involved, and like I didn't produce it, like or write it, like I pitched it. And I kind of was like around helping, like Jen Pepperman, who's brilliant with the women's division. She handled producing it, but like Daniel Bryan and Adam Pearce, jumped in, and like they added elements to make it bigger. I forget which one of them came up with the idea of lifting Otis, and then the other one like doubled down of like, okay, you do Gable, but then you do Otis to build it. And like it really blew Vince away. And then like the next thing was like, I was like, okay, she had lost to Bailey, which upset a lot of people, but I think helped her in the long run, because I think it's really hard to have an unbeatable babyface.
Yes.
So, and I think it made the second match better. So I was just like, listen, you go out there, I don't give a shit what you say. Like, we have this promo. Like, I think I told her, like, if you say something I don't like, I will take any heat for it. But you need to cry. You need to be emotional. You need to really feel the moment. And like, this is literally the biggest moment of your career. This promo is going to say a lot. You need to actually feel it. And she cried, and it was emotional, and it was awesome. And like, Vince really won her over, but it didn't look like she was going to win the Royal Rumble. And I started looking into, and I talked about this on another podcast. Like looking into putting a tag team together with her and Billie Kay, where I thought we can kind of do like a modern Rock and Sock connection with them. And like I was
that
like,
would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would have been awesome. But like, I was like planning it. Like I was in a Tampa hotel room, and we were watching like some sort of football game, and like they had just like an assistant had just left the Royal Rumble night before meeting, and they changed the finish, and like Charlotte was going to go over, and Bianca, and they rehearsed Charlotte going over, and Bianca was going to get eliminated like midway through the match. And it got changed to Bianca going over. And like, I think a lot of people voiced it, but like this guy, Ryan Ward, who's been there for like 14 years, he was Cena's writer, and probably for my money, like I think has had the biggest hand in the women's revolution. He was like lead writer, golden days of NXT, when like Kevin and Sammy and like the Four Horsewomen, all that stuff. From my understanding, from what I heard, like he kind of said like to Vince something, in fact, like Vince, like if you look at the Royal Rumble tomorrow, we have Edge winning and Charlotte winning. We're not making any new stars. And I think that really resonated, and like Bianca was on such a roll where it kind of made sense. And then she also had to like, again, like right after that match, really nail that post-match promo. And she did it, and like she was just awesome and great.
It's the same. It's Drew shit, right?
My bad. No, that's me. What do you think about like where Bianca is now and like where like how she's come full circle with like coming back to the Bailey story, and like she's even got like outside ventures going on now. Like she just recently signed with WME. And
I think she's crushing it. I think she's really, is coming into her prime. Like she hasn't been doing this that long.
Right.
And I think she's been in a lot of high level spots, and I think, it's really tough. I think when you become champion in the women's division to kind of keep your momentum, and I think she's doing a good job of that. And there are now more and more opponents. And I think there are stories to tell to kind of eventually build to either a Ronda story or a Charlotte story. And I think she just has to keep being her. And I think it will be more on the hardest part sometimes about like when you're in a wrestling writer's room or like a booker is the opponents. Because like if you have a shitty opponent, like it's just like, oh, like if this person has lost like for a year straight, like you can make somebody really hot really quickly, but it's just a little tougher in the women's division because unfortunately, and it sucks, like they don't get enough time. But I think like right now with what Hunter's done by putting Bailey's group together, you've kind of given this great heel group that kind of gives you a lot of matches. So I think it's going to help every woman on the roster, including Bianca.
That's dope. That's dope. I agree. You guys got a question? I want to take it back. I want to.
And by the way, sorry if I'm talking too much. Please interrupt me if you want to.
Interview.
Definitely. Now you dropped some gems, bro. You just mentioned like factions, like them doing with damage control or anything. Well, how do you feel about them like building more factions within the company right now? Is that something that they used to be like against, or like?
I think like they were. I think like whether they were against it or not, I think like it was more of a principle versus practice thing. Like I think they liked the idea of factions. The issue is when it comes to factions and tag teams to a lesser extent. And it's changed a little bit now because there are less live events. Live events cost money to put on, and you have to kind of also look at every wrestler as an act. So, like, if Roman Reigns does an act, you're paying for his hotel, you're paying for his flight, yada yada yada. If the Street Profits are an act, you're paying for 2 flights. If you have, a faction, you're paying for, 4 to 5 to whatever. So it's partially is a commerce thing. I don't always agree with that because I think like you have your people and you send them and you get your matches. But you kind of have to take the money into account. I think it's good that more factions and groups are happening. I just hope it doesn't become like AEW when you got like, everybody has a faction. It's like
the Warriors.
Yeah, it's like like essentially like the teacher assigns you to groups so you're not like left out in recess.
Right. That's so funny because now I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm thinking back to that quote where like they say Vince McMahon is like, oh, why you don't do more tag team matches? And he's like, well, why would I pay? Like, I got to pay 4 guys instead of 2 guys, like,
yeah,
like that's an expense, So it's like, okay, so it could just be like one of those types of things, not necessarily always like, not that I don't like doing that or not that I don't think that would be dope as well, but like financially, maybe sometimes not the best idea.
Yeah. And like, if you look at like NXT, like they've been really big about factions, but they also like, they don't really have like live events outside of Florida. So it's like they would occasionally, and they did start going on tour here and there. But when you're just doing like, back in like, pre-live NXT, when you're just canning 4 episodes at a time, it's a lot easier to kind of do that stuff.
especially when they have the schedule for taping, and then of course they have a completely different pay scale as well. So it's like
exactly,
you have a little bit more room and a little bit more freedom to do things like that.
Hey yo, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Yo, the way you talk about like yo, I was Bianca's writer, or then like, so is that how it goes? Like when it comes to writing for like wrestlers and stuff, does like certain writers just go and take certain wrestlers like a public defender or something?
It's yeah, you essentially it's just like a ticket system. You get like your number and you get called.
So who's the Saul Goodman of the writing team? Like, break it down for me, man.
Who's leaving? Who's leaving from The Wire? Gotta be Levy. You're definitely Levy. Chris is leaving.
I appreciate that. That's the next thing I want to say. It varies a bit. Like, sometimes like you bounce around between people. Like I got really hooked up with the Street Profits. I hooked with Bianca. I eventually started becoming our Truth writer. I know like before that I wrote like a lot of Sammy stuff. But Sammy would change a lot of that because he's really creative. I write a lot of Samoa Joe stuff, and he would like keep it, but it sounds so much better when he can make anything sound awesome. But like I think like when you're really showing you can write for somebody, you kind of get assigned that person, and like you really nail their voice, and it just becomes easier because like the deadline is so tough with a weekly live TV show. Like lead writers, like they don't really want to rewrite you if they don't have to, just because there's so much going on. So I think like there's a character element of it. Like if you really find somebody's voice, there's also like, the crossover segments that are like, at the top or end of the hour. Those are the most important segments of the show. And they're also the biggest segments. They're longer. They're 8 to 10 minutes. So you have your crossover writers. Like at the end, I was writing a lot of crossovers. And like, here and there throughout, like you have your couple people that you bounce around for crossovers where it's like, if they can write for anyone, or if like, there is a specific talent you have like that one writer writes really well for, but doesn't write crossovers, you can have them work together on it and tag team it. Yeah, so it's kind of like a thought process. Like there's also like when you're at TV, you may produce people that you don't write for. I produced a lot of the Seth Cesaro stuff, and like I produced a lot of the Ray Dom Seth storyline. I think like I wasn't writing that every week though. I wrote especially when I was on Raw, I was writing a lot of the Raw stuff. On SmackDown, I think I kind of would get to TV with the assignment and stuff, and I would rewrite it.
Well, you talk about like the crossover, like writing and stuff like that. Like, what's up with the continuity thing? Like,
I mean, what's up with it's not good. So,
do we not like have like somebody that oversees like, oh, this happened before? Because like now, like we're seeing like them drop certain nuggets on commentary, how like these performers have faced off here and there before, and if you've seen this back in PWG, that Ricochet and Sami Zayn have had a match before, whatever. Like, is that something that, in your opinion, is that something that you think may have been more like an ad lib thing, or is that something that like may have been like an edict across the board, like? Nah, we just only doing like WWE stuff. Like we only talking about that, and we not necessarily like getting into like actually dropping information about this. Like, I feel like I gave you just a lot just there.
No, it all makes sense. Like so there has been continuity people at times, like on the shows. They're not really doing continuity in that way. When it comes to like matches and stuff, they're doing story continuity. So like, is this beat being carried over from last week? Are we not telling the audience any important information for the story in this script? When it kind of comes to like past history and things, you know, I think Vince just probably felt like nobody knows what PWG is, or like the majority, like the mainstream audience doesn't. So like, why are we confusing them? And like, why are we promoting another wrestling company? I think I don't know if like the edict's changed. I think like Hunter probably just feels like if it's organic and you want to say it and it adds to it, do it.
Yeah, I feel
Simple as that.
I got a bunch of situations that I want to ask you about.
All right. Let's do some situational comedy.
Okay. The Sister Abigail stuff. I don't know,
Okay.
like, you know, whether you have involvement in these types of things that I got listed here. You can say yay or nay, or just give us your opinion on, you know, that situation or whatever. The Sister Abigail stuff, and I'm not talking about like the hints and the references towards. I'm talking about when they were leaning into the Sister Abigail stuff, where like it was like supposed to be like Bray versus Finn, but he was gonna come as Sister Abigail. They did the whole morphing of the thing,
Yeah.
Like the veil and everything.
So here's the thing about being a writer. Well, a couple of things about being a writer there. I did not have any involvement in that story. But I think like a lot of times, like when I was there, if you had an idea, most of the time we know an idea is bad. And we know something sucks, and we know it's like, can you believe how dumb this shit is? The job though is to make it good, or at least make it presentable. And because of like the way the company is structured, sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you have to go through process, and you eventually can't make it to the finish line. Like I remember my second year of the company, a segment, the Lashley sisters. Horrible idea on many levels, but those were the marching orders. So the writing team put 3 of its best entertainment writers on the segment, and the goal of it was like, all right, how do we make this entertaining and good? And if we can't do that, let's at least make it not offensive or bad. Like, how can we get it to just be like, we got through this? And like the original segment was awesome. Like that was written. It was really great on the page. Like I think it's like some of the TNA guys, or Impact guys now. Like, you know, Robert Evans was involved. A couple other people, like it's Angelo Fazio, who was there for like 10 or 12 years. Freddie Prinze brought him in. He was a writer who wrote like a lot of killer segments, and he actually pitched the CM Punk leaving with the title story. He was on it, and they wrote something like really great. And I think like when people were seeing it, like there was like objections to it, even though it was like toned down to what the original pitch was. And then I think we got to a point in the afternoon, like a couple hours before the show went on, where, you know, the segment was fine. It was watchable. Like it was not going to be what it turned into. But then like a couple people went to Vince and tried to convince him to kill the segment completely. Which, you know, sometimes when you tell a person something who has opinions that he's wrong, they dig in, and he went back to the original concept. What aired? So like, yeah, exactly. So like, you know, that's the example I always cite. Like the writers on that segment did awesome. It's just like what ended up going on air was not what they wrote. And when it comes to like Sister Abigail, I'll say this, just like you know, I don't know if he's listening to this episode, but like, so for like me, when it comes to Bray, like I was lucky enough to produce a couple Firefly Funhouses, and I did like the episode where we had the clock go to the Undertaker's debut, and I was like really excited about that. And Bray is a very fun character, but the person who has done such unbelievable work with Bray Wyatt as this writer, Nick Manfredini. He was also he's still there. He was Cody's writer on Cody's first run, and Nick kind of was like the genius behind all the Bray stuff. And Sister Abigail wasn't great, but sometimes I think Road Dogg talked about this on his podcast recently, where like somebody can kind of be doing something really creative and really awesome, and it catches fire, and like Vince puts his hands on it, and I think that's what kind of happened with the Sister Abigail thing. And yeah, just for what it's worth, like and the reason I bring up Nick is just because like I think Nick is one of my favorite writers in WWE or anywhere, but a lot of people take bows and credits for the Bray Wyatt stuff, and like it's Bray and Nick, like, and that's every iteration, whether that's like Swamp Bray, Firefly Funhouse Bray, but yeah, I think like a lot of times, like when Bray wasn't working, people were trying to get their fingers in it.
Now, when you talk about like Vince kind of getting his hands on things and things changing and things like that, so when it comes to that whole thing where people say like, "Oh, Vince, he came and he ripped the script up right before the show, and now they're in a frenzy. They've got to rewrite the whole thing on the fly, and da 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 da." When something like that happens, how true is that? Or how close to the truth are those rumors? And like, how do you handle like having to like completely work from scratch or like reconstruct something just as it's happening, or just like before the show is supposed to begin? Like, are you there live? Do you get the call that you got to come up with something quick, or how does that work?
You're in the production meeting, and which is supposed to start at noon and never really does. A lot of times too, like Vince, now mind you, like Vince will approve the show like either a day before or a couple days before, and sometimes he'll like gone through the script too. When you're there, I think like the hope sometimes is like he reads the show on the jet, so he has he's on the jet with lead writers, so like you can kind of start getting messages, so you can start to get into it. The show would there have been times where like the show would change a lot, or like a little. Sometimes it's just like when you're ripping up the show, like to put into context, like you're changing matches, and like you kind of go in, and it's like a weird thing because like in those production meetings at the time, like everyone kind of had to show their value. So like Vince wants to hear from people. So like when I was on the home team, for example, and I was Skyping, I always had to make a suggestion. Even though we had just spent 6 days putting the show together, we sent it as a team. We feel good about it. So like depending on suggestions, depending on this, that, or the other, it changes. It's rarely ever like a like it is 7:30 and we are literally tearing the entire script up. The show a lot of the times wouldn't go out till like 8:30. Sometimes if it starts at 8 or even 9, but a lot of that time is like you're still working on the show throughout the day. I would say like more often than not, a lot of times like you knew what you were doing at like 6:30 to 7, so it gives you an hour to work on it. When you kind of know something's blowing up, like you're working with the home team of writers too to kind of like start reworking stuff. But like a big part of like when these things change is like talent getting the script. And like you go talent and you get their takes. You have to either send them into the lead writer to present, or like go with the talent into Vince, or go by yourself to Vince to present the changes. So that will change things too. And that, I think like it's less about scripts being ripped up, and it's more about like when do things get approved. And sometimes things don't get approved until like 7:30, 8, because you're going through on Raw like a 3-hour show. And if you're reviewing the draft the final time, Vince is going, hopefully, like line by line through it. So that takes a minute. But yeah, a lot of times when the shows would implode, it would be in the production meeting. So you're usually like around 4 o'clock, you're knowing the big changes.
Gotcha.
So like, and change happens a lot when you have a process. Like the production meeting is like, you have all the writers, you have Vince, you have Hunter, you have Kevin Dunn, you have all the producers / agents, you have the digital team, and everyone kind of feels like they have to make a suggestion in it.
Oh, because like the digital team's got to like make like all the graphics and like the shit like that.
Yeah,
like, we got to
or
get
like
packages ready and things like that. Like
or like if we're taking like if we need like have a small match and like one of those shorter segments and we need like a story, we can do that on digital. And also they also like kind of talk like promote the show online too.
Okay, that makes sense. I got one more question. I'll turn it over to Ben. How receptive were Bianca and Billy Kay to the idea of them being paired together, or did it even get that far?
Didn't even get that far. I was working on that for like post Rumble. I'm sure Billy Kay would have loved it.
Against the what?
Billy was awesome. I still text with her now and then. She kind of became like, I always kind of hope like, Truth and I became like really close, and like if you saw like I was putting the pay-per-views together, like the scripts for them. So like for my last like 18 months there, like Truth was on like every kickoff panel, whether that's like him like dressing as Elmer Fudd, thinking like Bad Bunny's Bugs Bunny or whatever, like or doing the title change with the gobbledygooker. Like I would always find a way, and like Billy Kay was starting to become that person for me on SmackDown. So I was like, I even like was in one of her videos as Santa Claus. Like she was so awesome to work with, and like I think Bianca would have been cool with it if we pitched it. It's just like we found something, or we got lucky that lucky that it worked out, but also like through her hard work, like she put her position like self in a position that like when she got the opportunity to really just crush it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's great. So like while you were there, probably one of the most controversial things I should probably say from like you said you're there from 16 to 21. Kofi Kingston getting squashed by Brock. Like walk us through that.
Yeah, it was pretty shitty on a lot of levels. We kind of knew that the Kofi story was like so awesome and everyone like loved it and it made everyone feel like really good. And then like that summer I was looking at like a lot of the Kofi crossovers, like I was writing a lot of stuff with him and Dolph. I was writing some of the stuff with him and Randy, the stuff with him and Joe, and like, I wasn't producing any of that. I would just do the first drafts and send them in because I was on the home team at the time. But like I was really proud of that stuff, and like we all kind of knew when SmackDown premiered, Brock was going to win the title. But we never knew the match was going to be like that. And it was like, oh, okay. And I think a lot of people were stunned by it. And I think part of it's like when you're dealing with that high level of a talent, and it's really like this in like any form of entertainment or any walks of life, like the higher you get, the more responsibility they have. And the less people involved. And I think the feeling was that, Brock was leaving. Brock wasn't going back to Kofi. He was going to Kane, and they wanted to build a Kane match. And they felt like that dominant of a performance was the way to do that. I think it sucked. And I think the thing that like really sucked about it too was like, I never think a loss is like the worst thing in the world. And I also think like a loss like that, like if you look at the Becky Bianca thing, which again, not ideal, but it rallies the fan base around somebody. So I think there's like a positive element to be had. I I think the thing that really bummed me out, and I think it had a really negative impact on Kofi as a character. Kofi the guy, awesome and amazing talent. I think as like everyone can agree. He was going to have an interview the next week on SmackDown and be able to respond to it. And those types of promos are kind of really make or break promos. And due to time, because it was at the end of the show, it was cut for time. And I think also too, because of like the way Fox, there was some confusion over how Fox and WWE were timing SmackDown. So that kind of played into it too. But it was like, oh, like he had this horrible loss and we're not hearing from him now. And the segment that was written was like a very well written segment, and I think would have helped Kofi. But it sucks. It feels like Kofi was given a lot that summer. Like he beat Randy, he beat Joe, he beat Dolph, Bryan, he beat Kevin Owens. He beat like everyone, and he was looking like a really dominant champion. And it just kind of sucks that like that summer that was so great, that like Kofi Mania that was so awesome, you don't really it doesn't really bear fruit right now like the way it should. It doesn't bear fruit right now like how it should. Like Kofi should be a Roman opponent. He should be in main event things, and like he's not, and I think it's partially because of that. And then I also didn't love like what happened with him and Lashley last summer, because you kind of doubled down on it. There was an opportunity to like really rebuild him, and like I think that's like one of the good things about Hunter now, where like Hunter can kind of look at a match and like how do we make both people look good without burying one while building the other.
How do you make people look good without burying one versus the other? AEW does this thing with a ranking system where, they have like matches mean something, and the winners and the contenders are determined based off of, I don't know if it's strength of schedule or all just wins and losses, but
this BCS system that they got up over there, nigga.
But I do remember that there was a time. I don't remember what year this was. It might have been 2018. There was a SmackDown top 10 list that was introduced. And it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be like a ranking system to determine challengers for the champions. What do you recall about this? What was the idea behind it? How did it crumble and disappear so fast?
So it wasn't supposed to be around. It was like supposed to be a one-off deal. It was always intended to be, and it was a Vince idea, and it was just like a simple way to get Randy, if I remember correctly, Randy Orton to be pissed off, because I think he's ranked number 9 in it. I would have to go back and look. I think that's how it is. I may be wrong because it was a while ago. I remember everyone hating it, but like to Vince's credit, like he knows. He understands live audience psychology, and like there were moments when it was referenced, like where it got reactions from the live crowd, and like it got what he wanted from it. So it was like very short. It was always intended to be short-lived and just as like a simple entry point into a story.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Randy was number 9. Ty Dillinger was number 10. Ha ha. Yeah, AJ was number 1, Nakamura 3, Naomi 4, Bobby Roode 5, Usos 7, New Day was 6, Becky Lynch is 8, and it looks like Charlotte's at number 2. But yeah, you're right. So he just kind of boop, 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 boop to build that story. That's interesting. I see a lot of people were thinking that it was an entry point to that being more of like this is how we're going to determine who's going to be the number 1 contenders and how we're going to set up storylines and build things out with that. But that wasn't necessarily the case.
No, it's just sometimes it's just trying to find something simple to get you into something.
Sometimes you just need a vehicle to kind of get you there.
And people like Lyft.
People do. It is a like, and Vince has said that people like Lyft. But like, it's also like, I remember, like, I wish I've blanked out a lot of that, but there was so much consternation around that list and like the production meeting, where it's just like, why would he care? Like, why would anyone care? But like, the audience actually cared. Like, at least like the live crowd like really cared.
So if they didn't care, then why would they do a Royal Rumble every year and they do the countdown 10, 9, 8, 7, 6? Like, man, people love counting and shit. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's the Sesame Street in them. Hey, I want to ask a question about, because I don't know if you know, but you know
Ray
what I'm saying. Yeah, you know Ray J. You know what I'm saying? Ray J. wrote this segment for what I'm about to ask you about, because I don't know if you've seen in the rest of the news, but there was a little bit of a kerfuffle over there on the other side. And I want to know if you ever seen any backstage fights, and you ain't got to name no names. I don't want no names, but
I'll name names.
hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So,
no, I don't like. So I didn't see it, but like, this was like I had a pretty crazy first pay-per-view, which was 2016 SummerSlam. And like, it was wild. Again, going back to the Brock stuff, like, we had no idea whether Brock was going into business for himself or not. Then we found out like that was like the plan. It was like wild, because like once Cena put AJ over, which was awesome. Finn got hurt, which was like horrible. And I really learned a lot about wrestling right away, because like, there was like 6 months of planned Finn Balor storyline just out the window after that. But then like, the Randy thing, he's just like pouring blood. But then he's just like, he walks into the writer's room to use the bathroom, just covered in blood. Hey guys. And that's that. But I heard the commotion from the Chris Jericho and his Funky Bunch going to confront Lesnar. He went rounded up like Enzo, Mojo. There was a couple other people. I think it may have been one of the Shining Stars. And like, to go confront Brock, and like, it was like he's talked about it, so like, I don't feel, that's why I'm okay bringing it up. But like, it's not a pretty wild thing, and like, there was also a feeling though that like, obviously Brock is Brock, but like, if he made one misstep, like, Jericho did beat the shit out of Goldberg, so there was a feeling like, oh, like, he might catch you if you make a mistake. So, but like, I didn't see any of that. But like, going from like, okay, so I have this man that I've seen for X number of years on my television, just drenched in blood, peeing next to me, and then it's like Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, and a gang are having a throwdown. This was literally my first time at TV, because my first 2 weeks I was on the home team. This was like a home show, and then like, this is my first time ever being at like an event like backstage. I was like, oh, okay, so this is how it is.
That's lit.
That's hard.
Hey, yo, Jericho got Enzo, man. They about to go yell at Brock Lesnar real quick.
I've heard that story like 5 or 6 times. I've never heard the part that Chris Jericho rounded up like.
That's funny.
And looking back at it, that's probably a very smart decision too. Like, that's
How many people think he had?
I think it was like 4 guys. I think it's somewhere online too. I think you Google it and find it, but like, it also wasn't like he was going like locker room to locker room. Like he, like, I think he was with them at the time, and like, it was like, okay. And then they jetted.
He's like, nah, let's go do this.
Come on, guys.
Let me show you how the business is done.
Yeah,
that's cool. Okay, so let me ask you this. So I asked you about drafts. Boom. I wonder, Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman were brought in as executive directors. I believe this was like May of 2019 or something, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
This is so like, did you get to? I know you've got like a relationship of working with Paul Heyman and things like that. You know,
Paul's great.
But yeah, did you have an opportunity to work with Eric at all? I mean, like, he was only there for I think like 6 months, and then it was kind of gone. But like, was there an actual like idea behind that whole thing? Because the idea of the executive director, like, that kind of evaporated really fast as well. So I'm like kind of asking about things that like I was interested in that just kind of like disappeared, and it was like, well, what happened with that?
Yeah, I think what happened was like, so like with the Eric thing, I never really got to work with Eric because I was on Raw, and during that time, like the brands really became separate. Mm-hmm. Mainly because I think they probably would have kept everything the same if it was just Monday, Tuesday. But yeah, it was just like you are on the Raw team. You're not really seeing the SmackDown guys anymore. I would see like Eric once a week in the office. Like I saw him when we did, I think, Raw Reunion in Tampa. And like a couple times, and he was nothing but nice and like really smart and a really good guy. I think like, so I don't really know why that did not work out. He comes off as a person who has a really great business mind. I think the advantage Paul had compared to Eric is like Paul never left the business. And like when you're getting back into wrestling, like it's a lot. Like so if like you're doing that and then you're moving across the country from Montana, moving your family across the country, the job is not a 9-to-5 job. It is a 24/7 job. And you have to like relearn the business. It's a lot. But I think Eric comes off as such a smart and nice man. Mm-hmm. And he's obviously had a Hall of Fame career, whether he's in the Hall of Fame or not. And like, you know, I think when like the field's even, like Eric like seems like a guy who could be successful doing anything. It's difficult. Like that is not an easy job.
Mm-hmm. Getting in the groove and like scheduling and like the workflow of it all.
Yeah. And like, you got to learn all the rules of the company, and there are a lot of rules there. So it's a lot. But yeah, Eric seems cool.
Yeah. The rules, like no leg slaps, no pile drivers, don't say wrestling.
Yeah. Don't look him in the eye, no sneezing.
I don't think wrestling was ever banned. I think the words professional wrestling were. And so like you could say wrestling, I think just the idea was when you hear the words professional wrestling, mm-hmm. you think of like, you know, the 1970s people yelling into the camera, where the idea is to make WWE a bigger form of entertainment.
Gotcha. Was there ever any? Go ahead. No, you got it.
Like what he said, like what Vince said in the interview, like we're trying to like kind of separate ourselves and like create a brand with saying like WWE superstars versus professional wrestling. That's all I want to say. You go ahead, Graham.
So like a marketing thing, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Boom. So what about that one time where all the McMahons and Triple H, they all stood in the ring together and they said, you know what, fans, we're going to step back and we're going to put our pride to the side and we're going to give you guys exactly what you want. I'm one of the people that am of the opinion of they kind of gave a lot of people what they wanted after that. You had Kofi Mania, Becky Lynch was popping and all that. So I'm like, we kind of got what we wanted. Like we went to bat for all of those people and they all had prominent positions. But like, how do you feel about that? How do you like, one, how do you feel that came off? And two, do you think that like, I don't know, that
it didn't really. Yeah, I think like. So I think everything you're saying is true. Like those people, like they had the fans' hearts. They got those runs, and you know they were being listened to on that. I think the negative thing about the promo is like they put all the heat on Corbin.
Yeah,
I think the heat on that made him very toxic and got him X-Pac heat, which kind of sucked for him. And like. You know, say what you will about Corbin. hell of a worker, hell of an athlete, willing to put people over, willing to try different things with his character. I think Corbin is a really talented heel and really underrated. And I think that promo set him back a minute. And it took probably until like they did the lottery storyline, or him losing his money, or whatever that storyline was after I left.
The bum ass Corbin thing.
Yeah, to get him like back on solid ground. I think the issue with it, and it's an issue I kind of had at the company at the time. Like, I think the Brock stuff at the time wasn't working, and I think everybody was really tired of it. And I think, if I am correct, that promo was done after Roman left and after Brock went over Braun and Saudi. So it just kind of felt like more of the same, and then you're losing you're kind of, for those months, the show's really his show because the title's there, and obviously he put Seth over in New York, but still like 3 or 4 months of that show. And I think a lot of the things that irritated people with WWE weren't necessarily pushes of talent. I think it was just like not abandoning storylines, because like if you're a fan and you're watching something and you dedicate 3 weeks of your time to something and just abandon it, sucks.
And then like sometimes like just random weird booking decisions. Like I was there that night that they did that promo. I was in the crowd, and it was the first show that I took my daughter to, and so she was really into like Sasha Banks at the time, and Sasha was hot, like red hot, and it was just like, yeah, we're gonna give the fans what they want, and then like she taps out to Natalya in like 4.5 minutes, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And my daughter's in there with the boss time glasses. She's like, forget this, man, this is stupid. I'm like, whatever, man. But yeah, I just always wonder like about that particular thing and how that went over, and like, whatever. But whatever. Different question for you. Actually, you know what? Let's play a game. All right. I got a couple of names here. Rapid fire. I'll just throw them out, and you tell me your opinion of that person. Whatever happens, happens. Kevin Owens.
Amazing. He was my favorite wrestler going when I started the job. He is such an amazing performer. He makes everything you give him better. Brilliant ideas. I think the boat was kind of missed with him a little bit. I feel he should be a much bigger star. But I think Hunter is going to rectify that. I think he's just a great person as well. And I always felt confident in any promo I produced with Kevin. Like, you got a talent that knows every word on the page. Kevin or like Seth, they're guys who are going to kind of say what they're going to say, but like you trust them more because they know the story and they know how it works. And you're in communication on like when you have to like hit the music and things like that. Kevin's one of the most versatile talents in wrestling, and he's one of the best people, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Shorty G.
I'm just happy he's doing well now.
Andrade.
Hey, I'll take.
Go ahead.
One quick thing about Gable.
Yeah.
He took again, like sometimes you really are like what you make of something, and he took something and went all in on it, and was, he made something better than what it should be. So like, props to him. Hell of a talent.
Shoes, please. Shoes, please. I was saying Andrade.
Andrade's great. Like I worked a lot with him at NXT, and mainly at NXT, not as much on the main roster. And it's really interesting when you work with somebody who doesn't really speak English. So it's like figuring out like that, like that dynamic of how to communicate during the promos. But like my favorite Andrade moment is this was when we were doing the PC shows, and like obviously like I have a bias for the Street Profits, and we were doing like I was producing a segment with another writer where it was like him and Garza cutting a promo, and it was live, and for We Want the Smoke, Andrade mimicked smoking a cigarette, and I was just like, I was scared to death that we were going to lose the catchphrase. like I've never thought of it like cigarette before, especially because Vince hates tobacco, so it's like, oh god damn it! Luckily, I don't think he saw the segment.
So, real quick, how do you like communicate when there's like somewhat of a language barrier? Do you just like grab Google Translate and be like, "I'm trying to say this to you"?
Like sometimes, but then like you also kind of like
an interpreter or like somebody to kind of play buffer.
Zelina at NXT, Zelina was really great with that, and so was Tommy End. But yeah, sometimes when you're just like with Andrade, it was just like you're trying to figure it out. Like he does speak some English, but not a lot, and I speak no Spanish, so it's just like, hey, like
he's like, I'm absolutely no help.
Yeah, I would use Google Translate sometimes, and then like mimic where he should stand and stuff like that.
Got you.
Also, I'll say this: I'm not saying he's one of them, but there are a lot of wrestlers who don't know English that there are suspicions of might be a work. Yeah,
got it.
Yeah,
got it.
I don't think he's one of them, but
Pentagon, huh?
Yeah,
that's a little bit of that. A little bit of that doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah.
All right, Rhea Ripley.
I think Rhea's great. I didn't really work with her all that much. But yeah, I think when you kind of see her in-ring talent, she's good. I think she's, still so young, and I think she's been put in like big spots a little earlier than intended. And you've seen some growing pains, but I think she's going to figure it out and kind of get where she needs to get.
The Usos.
The best. Just the best. They're so fun. They're just great, and they're probably the best tag team in the world. Like for years, like their matches, like how many bangers have they had on kickoff shows? Just kickoff shows are like it's like
just kickoff shows.
Like they take away from the opening match. They're so good.
There's no one throw a chair at them.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, my favorite Uso moment is like or not my favorite moment, but I was working with them once, right when they had turned, or like maybe like 6 months after they turned heel. You got away from like the face paint and stuff, and like we were trying to figure out like rhymes, which I'm not good at. And I had like
so
a line.
Was you doing the Styles P Jadakiss stuff,
No.
helping them out with that?
I was more taking dictation. Yeah, I was their secretary, and like I wasn't working with them that much. It was just like one segment I was doing with them, and
okay, I thought
like
you was finna turn your hat around and start.
No.
I was like, okay.
Lip up.
But I pitched like a line about cops in there, like, which was more like talking about how like they would fuck up cops or something. Like, yeah, we hate cops. We're not even going to mention them. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. All right, bro. Correction, not punishment.
Definitely mental note, like duly noted. Got you.
Yeah.
Got it. Sin Cara.
All of them.
My thought is like there was like Sakara is like the deja vu wrestler, where there come times where like, oh, we gotta push Sin Cara, and then like realize like can't the promos aren't getting over because you can't see his fucking mouth. And this happened at least twice when I was there, and 3 to 4 times before I was there, apparently. And I think I think one thing I learned about Sin Cara is being kind of ready for your opportunity. You kind of had an opportunity on SmackDown once, and I think you gotta kind of know where you work, and I think his punches weren't what Vince wanted, and the push kind of ended. And I kind of learned, and I started telling talent a lot of the time, these, when you're having a match, these are the 3 things. I don't know anything about. I know a little bit now about putting a match together from my NXT time because I spent a lot of time in a room with Sean and Hunter. But if you can sell, take your time, and throw realistic looking punches, a lot of other stuff is going to be fine. And the talent that did not do that, they would lose their push.
Natalya.
Oh, she's so nice and so kind. And it was just lovely to work with. I think she's one of the most underrated wrestlers in the world. She's always on point with that stuff, always come with ideas, and she's kind of the backbone of that division. And WWE is so lucky to have her.
Shout out to Natalya.
Yeah,
gang.
Adam Cole.
He's my guy.
He's a sweetheart.
Cole. He's the nicest guy. Such a big fan of his. I was telling you guys last time, we wrote, I worked with him a lot during my NXT run. And it was sad to stop working with UE when they stopped having main roster writers go to NXT. But yeah, he's so talented. He is one of the best wrestlers in the world.
I just got a few more. Shout out to Adam Cole, aka Chug. What is it, Chug or Chub or whatever his little gaming name? Chug. Anyway,
Jeff Hardy.
I didn't get to work with Hardy a lot. I pitched the one segment I pitched with him was that 20th anniversary segment to get into the Samoa Joe story. But yeah, I didn't really have a lot of many opportunities to work with the Hardys, unfortunately. The Hardys and Rusev were the 2 that kind of just didn't happen. But man, I was in Gorilla when they came back in Orlando, and the way that it was kind of shaped like a roller coaster, so you were high up.
yeah.
You felt it shaking with how crazy the crowd was for them.
Oh shit, that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. Okay, shout out to the Hardys. They do big things. Let's see who's next. Oh, Randy Orton.
Randy is Randy has had a reputation for being a dick over the years, but he was really awesome to me and really nice, and he was the Randy Orton I saw was a awesome locker room leader, really funny, underrated worker, and yeah, he was just really great, and he really cares about his family, and yeah, I saw him really help younger talent out. I know when Drew was having his Mania run, he would pull Drew aside and give him tips and stuff, and I'm a fan of Randy's as a person.
Shout out to Randy. Last person on my list was forget that.
Name changes.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? How does that work? When you hear, I want to just talk about names in general. Changes and the names that they just give people. All of this Von Wagner, extra. Where do these names come from? Why do they name people what they name them? I'm sure you have nothing.
Did Aldo Montoya too.
Yeah, I'm sure you have nothing to do with that. I'm sure you, but
no, we kind of do. It's
okay.
So when it comes to the names, there will be times where, and it's not all the time, you will be asked to submit 3 names for a person. And the writing team does that, creative services does that, a couple different departments. So, like, Vince would get like a list of 100 to 150 names.
Chili McFreeze.
Yeah, that has been on there. My favorite was this writer John had like pitched, which I actually thought was a good one. Like, you also do nicknames too, or monikers. A moniker for Grand Metalik was the Rumblebee, which I really loved. Yeah, so it's like, that's how you do it, and like I think Vince kind of would think of it as a couple different things. Like, I don't think he wants his talent to seem larger than life. So that's why sometimes like you take a name away and give somebody one name, because like Vince WWE was becoming popular in the day of Prince or Madonna or like that stuff. So he thinks like the one name makes a bigger star.
That's why you go for something like an Alexander Rusev to just Rusev.
Yeah, and like I have never heard him say that. I'm just guessing. And also I think too, like with Rusev, it's like I think he feels like Rusev kind of comes off more as a monster if you take like the Alexander away. So I think that's kind of the logic of it. To a point, but yeah, it's something. I think he wants to turn these, larger than life, and turning these wrestlers into characters, because it's an entertainment show.
Ezekiel.
No, Cesaro. Remember, Antonio is so not menacing.
Yeah,
that's why you go with Cesaro, and 6 languages, you still can't cut a promo. I'm cutting this out. But anyways,
we'll leave that alone.
That's how I feel. Let's see. This is the last thing that I have for me. Last thing for me. The Miz and Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah,
this big story about the Intercontinental title, and I think it culminated at like No Mercy, like 2016, 2017. It might have been like right around the time you had just came in, actually.
Yeah.
Was there ever any idea about like, Ziggler should lose this match and like recalibrate his character and like maybe come back repackaged or something like down the line? Or was it just like, nah, like he's good the way he is?
Yeah, that story was pitched and approved before I started, so I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember it being like I think it was a really good story. I think the issue with doing something like that at the time for SmackDown was so such a small roster.
Yeah.
So it's like they could not afford to lose anyone. Like, that's why, like, Swagger became a free agent and like moved to SmackDown. That's why Mickey James was brought back. And like, just because like, it was tough to get a show out of that roster. But Brian James and Road Dogg Brian James, Ryan Ward, who I was talking to you about before, Cena's guy and architect of the Women's Revolution, and this guy Stephen Guerrero, who was a brilliant writer. It kind of felt like they had a year of that show pre the Jinder Mahal stuff. No, not talking trash on Jinder, that wasn't his fault, but like where it was just like they were having amazing episodes every week, and I thought that story was like really good. But yeah, you just couldn't afford to lose anyone.
Did you ever get to work with the Bollywood Boys?
Yeah. Sure did.
Oh.
They're great.
During the gender run, or during like when they went to like 205 and went down to NXT and stuff?
I probably worked with them like a little bit on 205, not much. Ginger was on my call sheet, so they were on my call sheet when he won the world title, and then because he was a world champion, he got moved to like a lead writer's call sheet. But like I would talk to those guys every week. they would go all out and sacrifice their, like, you look at that Randy match, like, God
Joe.
damn.
Yeah.
I was about to say that.
Doing the
Dribble
most.
that boy.
Yeah.
Dribble that boy off that table.
Even he was like,
Ooh, was there ever any serious internal push for like 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen type deal? I know they did like that one little like promo, like not like a promo, but it was like a video package where they just kind of like met, and it was kind of like a Was there ever like a, like maybe we should kind of like SummerSlam next year or peg it towards whatever?
I don't think Vince was ever on board with it. I think others in the company were. I think it probably could have ended up happening if eventually. But yeah, it wasn't anything ever really on the docket. I think like some people really wanted it to happen and build towards it, but I think I feel like if everyone was still at the company now, it definitely would.
Gotcha. All right, that's me. What y'all got? Y'all good?
Cool.
Y'all good?
Man, are you responsible for Wendy? Was that you?
I don't know if I definitely wrote a lot of those promos. That may just be Joe doing Joe. But I'll tell you, like Road Dogg came up with Night Night, and sold a lot of shirts. And like him and Steve Guerrero came up with that great like book where like he's telling the story and like. But yeah, that's the thing about Joe. Like I don't know if I wrote that. I don't know if another writer wrote that. If it was on the page or not, but like. Joe can kind of take like 2 words and make it be like just very intense and very awesome.
But you did work on the story time little thing?
Some of it, not all of it.
Story?
Yeah,
That's
like I didn't do the nursery story. Like that was all Brian James and that was all Road Dogg and Steven Guerrero.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
That's dope. Shout out to Samoa Joe. He always be violating people.
Yeah.
He's a habitual line stepper.
I'm glad he has one of AEW's 34 titles.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Do you think having more titles or less titles like matters necessarily in a wrestling company, or do you think it can kind of clutter things? Is that why you say
I think
that?
it depends. I think the way they're doing it, it's like it's participation trophies. Like I'm surprised that I wouldn't be shocked that like when they come back into Gorilla, like Tony Khan gives them like a title and an orange slice. Like
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yo.
It's just like, I don't know what matters. Like everyone, like you're even like even the Owen Hart thing, like give them a fucking trophy. And that's like the simplest thing in wrestling. You can break the trophy. It's a story element. Like
no, but it's a title.
Yeah. It's like like everybody has to have a title.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so
next week Tony's gonna have a title. Just walking out doing the hunter with those eyes bugging.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Speaking of titles, how many times did you get the text message like, "Hey man, look, we put the title on me and I just beat everybody"? What people call the hardcore Holly text. Like, how many times were you getting that?
A lot. No, it's like it depends who, and I can tell you off air like who, but like there was one talent I told you about, I think on DM, who like I should be a world champion. Like I'm 6'7", former athlete. I should be world champion. There is one wrestler who I respect his hustle for so much, who won, I forget if it was the Intercontinental title or the United States title. Supposed to hold it for a week, maybe 2 weeks. He kept on pitching stories and was able to get them through and had like an awesome 6-month title reign. And he's like, I know. Okay, I can put him over in 2 weeks. But if we do this tonight, it'll make that match bigger. He's supposed to put up 4 different put over 4 different people, and like I think he lost the title due to injury or something.
Wow.
Booked himself into a 6-month reign. That's hard.
Yeah.
Smart.
I respect it. Few people can do it. But
Smart. Very smart. That's hard. Oh, wow. So who shut down Diddy calling himself Brother Love? Was it Brother Love?
oh man, that's a good question. I actually don't know, but I think Brother Love likes the nickname.
No, he doesn't.
Saying, I don't know if somebody owns it or what, but I just know Diddy was like, "Yo, I'm Love, I'm Brother Love." Matter of fact, I don't even call me Diddy no more. Don't call me Sean. Call me
Love.
Brother Love. You know what I'm saying? And then it was like, oh,
yeah. I mean, I do know Bruce loves the nickname, so we'll.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean.
I would like to
Bruce
see. Yeah. Who? I would love to see that match.
Right. That'd be hilarious. I remember one time when there was like a thing between like the Game and Triple H, and the Game, the rapper, being able to call himself the Game, and like it was like an interview in like Double XL or something where Game was like, "I don't care nothing about what Triple H got to say. We could box right here. We could fight in the middle of Compton. We could use the telephone wires as ring ropes." I was like, "What is wrong with this man?"
Like, bro. And you thought this guy had like a small slither like brain power, like he's doing like 10-minute disses on Eminem right now. I'm like, well, what the fuck is he doing? I'm running a company right now, bro.
Yeah. I'm talking to Snickers about a multi-million-dollar deal.
Sorry, Mr. JCon.
That's funny. What do you think about NXT 2.0 and that whole experiment? And are you glad that it's over?
I mean, like, I don't think it was bad. I think like the branding of it was off-putting because Hunter wasn't involved. I also like. Sean, from my understanding, Sean was telling the truth that like he was, heavily involved in the creative of it, and like I think like there was like a real issue of, and a bunch of people we've talked about, like you're bringing in these indie wrestlers in their 30s, all incredibly talented, but they have taken a lot of bumps. And you're investing your development dollars, like, we're all basketball fans here. Like, if your team drafts a 22-year-old, like, why are we drafting a 22-year-old? Like, it's like you want, like, maybe a sophomore, but like, and it's kind of like, I think it kind of became like that too, where like you were investing your money in people who had like gone around the world, done all these crazy matches. Yeah, and it's just like going back to the bump card. So it's like, I think the positive thing is like they built up fresh new talent. Like I think they have done a great job with Braun. I think Harlan's cool, and like they have a lot of people now who are developing and finding themselves. It feels like the NXT of 2015, 2014 in a way. And like I'm very proud of NXT. It was like my favorite part of the company was going to NXT. That's part of the job. Multiple reasons why. But I think for the future of the company, you kind of had to change the development a little bit. I think it needs to be more of a mix, if anything. Because I also think like those wrestlers who have been around the world, like they have skills that the PC wrestlers don't. So I think like any sports team, you need like diversity in your roster. You can't just have carbon copies of people. But like I feel like, this Roman run right now, the thing I always keep thinking about is like, this amazing run, whoever gets the carrot of defeating him, like it's not like that, but it's like in the vein of like defeating the Undertaker. It's like this is going to be a very, very special thing, and I think you want to give that to the person who can be the face of the company for the next 5 years or 10 years. And I think the development system has put out a lot of great women wrestlers who are phenomenal and all great. I think you don't have the age-appropriate star to give that character at the moment.
So as a like with your writing mind, if you put your hat on, to who is that person? Is there somebody in the company right now that you think that can take that responsibility of beating Roman and like carrying the torch thereafter, or do you think that that's something that they really need to kind of get the ball rolling on and figuring out and cultivating?
Yeah, I think they got the ball rolling on that with NXT 2.0. I think there have been like missteps, and there's also been bad luck. Like, you know, Jason Jordan was being built to be like the next guy.
Jason Jordan's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and there was a whole plan for him, and it sucks. Speaking about good people, he is such a good person. And like, you know, Jason was going to be like a big player, and what happened and stuff. You know, I think Braun. I understand people not liking Braun. I did not always like working with Braun backstage, but he was like the person who, while I was there, the first person who was like kind of crossing over into the mainstream. I would feel like Braun and Bianca were kind of like the two. He was kind of mismanaged, so it was like that kind of like, I think from a booking perspective, unfortunately, in his matches against Brock. So it's like you're dedicating these time to these people, and it's for various reasons, either injury or like, you know, mistakes in the booking not working out. I think right now for me, I feel it should be. I'm biased. I feel like Montez is the guy. I think like because I think Montez can I think he can be a babyface or a heel. He has the body for both. He has talking skills for both. I think there are a couple minor things he has to improve on, but it feels like he could be the face of the company. I think the other person who's a little further away is Braun.
Braun Breaker? Or
Yeah, Breaker.
Yeah, James.
No, because bro, you can't do that to me, bro. They just brought Braun Strowman back. You can't do me.
I got confused too. He's gonna lose the first name. But yeah, like Tez would be like my guy. I obviously have a massive bias, but like, you know, and by the way too, like I don't like occasionally I see people being like, well, you know, when Tez goes on a singles run, you know, Dawkins, like, I don't know how Hunter's going to book things, but Dawkins had all the talent has all the talent to be a massive monster heel. He is a legit 6'7". He is one of the best shit talkers on the planet. Like, he incredibly athletic. He is like a legit main eventer. I don't know if he's like going to be like John Cena or Roman Reigns, but he can become a main event player as a single star. And I think he could also be a big baby face, but he has like a ton of skills that make him a fantastic main event heel.
And he heard everybody that said all of the rumbling and all of that chatter about Montez would be great to go on a solos run. He said, okay, cool. And he got in that lab. He started cooking.
And he is a hard fucking worker too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if we clip anything from this, Team Dawkins all day.
Big action. Big action.
He's flipping over the ropes now. Suicidas of the tope.
He's serious. Like, and I feel like it's like a point that he's trying to make, and maybe not to like impress people, but like maybe like for himself and for his own. Like, okay, cool. Like, if this is what the conversation is around my name, let me show you why the conversation needs to shift a little bit. You know, and I think he's been doing a hell of a job.
And by the way, I don't want to take anything away from Tez. Like, I just said he could be like the face of the company, but it's like the group works because it's an equal group.
Yes.
Like they play off each other really well, and like I think they aren't the same. Like they have a very different dynamic, and like you know, I think like if Kane can have a world title, if Christian can have a world title, Dawkins can have a world title.
Jack Swagger had one.
Fuck. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, fuck,
So
I was
yeah,
there for that.
if
Yeah.
Jack Swagger can have a world title, Angela Dawkins can have a world title.
Big action. Salute to Dawkins.
Absolutely.
You know, because people say like it's interesting. It's interesting that you say like Tez, because I don't really hear very many people saying that. But I hear a lot of people say like Cody should be the one to beat Roman, but you know, somebody younger or like somebody like Braun Breaker. Those are kind of like the names that I typically hear. But Tez, yeah, that's a dope option as well. If they wanted to break off that Carmelo Hayes, yeah, him too.
Yeah, I think if you there's a really good story if they do it right. That's a breakup story between the Prophets. Yeah, like if I have Tez as a babyface, like I book that match just like the Eddie Guerrero Brock match. And you know, like Tez is so athletic and so amazing to watch. Like he's a highlight reel of himself, and like he is just a legit star.
I agree. I had this vision like a week ago of like recreating that moment, which is now I guess like a controversial moment, and you know, because what is the thing? He whose name shall not be spoken.
He who should not be named. Yeah.
Voldemort,
Shall not be named. Yeah. Benoit.
Yeah.
We just call him the Pegasus Kid.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But that moment where it was like him and Eddie in the ring together,
and you guys can use
celebrating
that too.
their championship reigns.
The Pegasus Kid was in there, you know what I'm saying? You know, the Pegasus Kid won the Royal Rumble in 2004, you know.
We'll definitely just run it with the Pegasus Kid for sure.
Might be the way we get over.
By the way, you guys can keep this in or not. My boy Dave Schillen and I were talking about doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And we couldn't close the deal, so it feels like it's not happening. So I feel comfortable saying this. I was going to talk to you guys about this. I was either going to name, because I think we all have the same feeling when this promo happened, but I was either going to name the podcast "Keeping It 100," or do that, or do that as like Dave going like, "Oh, Chris, how's it going? I'll just keep it 100." Like
yes.
open every show. Like
that is great. I wish I had that clip. I don't even have that clip to do that, but that is hilarious. Yes,
I was
on the same page.
I was at the forum when that happened, and you know, it kind of erased any a lot of historic moments that have happened in that arena. Bigger than any Lakers championship.
There's nothing bigger than that, man. Salute to Athena, man. She made a moment. She made a moment.
Yeah,
she put her flag down. She definitely put her flag down. That's pretty much all I got. Was there anybody in the wrestling industry that you didn't get to write for that you feel like you had a really good idea for that you just didn't get off? Is there anything like that was just like, ooh, I wish I could have, if we could have did this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was very lucky. Like I worked with literally like everyone from the Attitude Era, like Hunter, New Age Outlaws, Sean, a bunch of Sean stuff, Austin for Austin 316 Day, which was something.
You did the thing with the Austin in the pandemic when he's talking to the chairs.
Oh yeah, I thought I was getting fired that day. Rudy Gobert gets COVID, and I find out I'm flying to Florida. I don't know how that tracks, but it did. But yeah, working with Austin was the best. It was just like it was a wild time because nobody knew what was happening. Yeah, that was also a promo I wrote where you write the good version of that promo. I had something where like I had like we had to incorporate a janitor in it. I don't know if it made the show. I forget, but like I had the janitor have like a heart attack in like an over-the-top way, and at Austin, which I think Austin liked actually, was like Austin 3:16 says "Don't die," and
Whoa. Oh my goodness, that is great.
And just to show you how production meetings go, somebody who's not on the writing team raised their hand and said to Vince, Vince, with everything going on with COVID right now, I think it's inappropriate to say Austin 3:16 don't die. And you're right. Just taking out of the script. So, like, yeah, those production meetings get pretty, like, you just, like, look back, keep the receipt.
Sitting there like, yo, this could have all been an email right here.
Yeah.
No, but
like you've had the script for 24 hours. Just email me.
That's funny. Yeah, that's
that reminds me. I'll tell you quickly. I'll tell you my favorite. So yeah, person I probably wish I got to work with a little bit was Jericho. Like Jericho was there when I was there. Like I pitched segments for Jericho. I never actually got to write for Jericho because Jimmy Jacobs over at Impact Now, brilliant writer, wrote a lot of, like, he came up with the Festival of Friendship, all that stuff. A quick dumb thing I never got to do. I'll give you two quick dumb things. One we did that we ended up not airing that did not work. And then one thing that got cut every single week was I was doing all the offsites with the Prophets and the Viking Raiders. I became like really close to those guys, like all four of them. And when we kind of made, like, that's also too, like, trying to take an idea that's not great and turn it into something. Because the original concepts for that, not great. But it worked out really well. When we kind of accidentally made Ivar a ladies' man character, we wanted to have him talk and eventually open a website that would be Vikings only, like farmers only. I think we changed it because of OnlyFans, like, to be people getting confused to like Vikings mingle. But like we literally had it in the script for like 7 to 8 weeks, and because of how crazy the pandemic stuff was, like, things kept on changing on the fly all the time. Also, like, a really cool moment with that friendship was, like, we had to like write a new segment, and like Dawkins was there, and Dawkins wasn't in the segment, but we were talking about like Dame Lillard, and like we all just started writing a segment together that threw myself, Ivar, and Dawkins, where like we had like Ivar time, like Dame time, like, which was fun. But a segment that did not land, that got cut when we were doing like all the pandemic stuff, was like Truth and I had an idea for a segment that we thought was fucking funny, where, because he had won the 24/7 title so many times, we were waiting for him to get to a number with like 5, so we got to 35. So we wanted him to do the Booker T 5 times, but like, and just go. And he did, and it was amazing. It was just like, it kind of bombed, but like in the most amazing way possible. So we got it. You can save this for the
I don't even know if that's PG.
I can't wait I gotta tell me you have that clip.
We love Truth over here.
He'll be on my wedding. Love him.
That's dope, man. By the way, how was vacation for you?
It was awesome. Yeah, speaking of Harry Potter, went to the play in London.
Oh,
What?
Shockingly, yeah, it was and I was like really negative about the play because it was a lot of money, and like, we were originally supposed to go last year, but COVID shut it down, and they would not give us our money back, even though we don't live in the country. But yeah, like, the special effects were wild, and then like we spent a lot of time in the countryside, like London and Scotland and France. And it was just like all awesome.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Did you go to the Clash at the Castle? I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I told him the only way I would go is if Roman put me over.
I want to be sitting right next to Bret Hart.
Yeah. Just
He's like, no. Hey, you got Tyson Fury to knock out Austin Theory? Like, no. Give me that spot. Give me that spot. I've been waiting to punch that.
I had a moment like that once where if you go back and watch the Gargano Ciampa match from I think New Orleans on the leg crutch guy in the match, so it gave me an excuse to say, like I said for a year, that I was in the match of the year. The last one.
Yo, I just watched that shit, and I remember that spot. Yo, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was that, and then in my hometown as a rib, I was the cheeseburger in Noe Jose's conga line in the Prudential Center.
Oh gosh. That is
I feel I'm killing the momentum now, just like talking about dumb things.
No, that's hard because like honestly, like because I was thinking about like being a writer, like how do you like when I was talking, when we were thinking about like the draft at the beginning, like when we first started talking, like I was like, yo, like I wonder like how easier or how harder does it like help to have like a set roster like that? Yeah. Because like if you get dealt like somebody like a No Way Jose, literally the person I thought of, like how do I book No Way Jose to a world title shot? Yeah. Like I don't know.
You book him to an episode of Main Event.
Right there you go. It's like he booked himself that flight to AEW Dark after that promoter in Canada gave him that money. Damn. That's what they say. I don't know. That's what they say. Whatever. Last question I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to get out of your hair. I'm going to let you guys all do your thing. But is there one person on the WWE roster that you feel like can really be a game changer that they're not necessarily thinking about? Like somebody like a diamond in the rough to you that Dark just like, if they just give that somebody the ball and let them run with it, who would that be?
I think they're doing pretty good right now. For me, again, I have a big bias. Like I feel like the Street Profits were like going up and up like this, and it's kind of plateaued a little bit. And I don't think it's because of their work. I think it's kind of a little bit because of the booking. I think like after I left, I'm not sure if what happened on SmackDown, but they just kind of seemed to kind of they just haven't had the stories like which kind of bummer. Like the Uso stuff is great, but I think they can kind of use more because I think they're crossover stars.
I agree. For me personally, like I agree with that one. I'm also thinking like somebody like a Mustafa Ali. I think he's really good at like some of the ideas that he seems to have, and like even like some of those promos that he cuts, that he seems to like shoulder a lot of the work himself. Or at least that's what is said about it. Yeah, I think he has pretty good ideas.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Dope. You guys got anything else?
And I got my questions off, man.
Gang,
fight any gang I'm talking about, man.
Well, I really appreciate you for taking time to hang out with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's been great.
Now that like the podcast series is over, I'm trying not to do too many of them or any of them really. But you guys, your Twitter account and your podcast, I check in on all the time because it's just stellar. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this though. What do you think that we can do to like kind of be a little bit more out there, but less like, because like this is the thing, right? This is what I'm having trouble with. Getting interviews from like WWE in like communications. Like, I'm like, are we too edgy? Are we too extra? Is there too much? Like, does the PR department probably, you know, like, or the media department look at us and be like, see our shit and be like,
I don't think it has anything to. I don't think that has anything to do with you guys.
Okay, cool.
I think that's them. I'd be trying to go the AEW route more because I think they're more open to that stuff.
I mean, I think the same thing, but we also interviewed Big Swole, who like kind of said something about the owner. So I'm like, ooh,
it was right after too. Like,
so like, I feel like we're kind of in a weird like shadow banning situation where it's like nobody really wants to like give us a shot. And I'm like, damn, man, like I wonder if there's something that happens
though. Like they say no.
Yeah, of course. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm comfortable with like battling through the nose, but I'm just like, I wonder if like, you know, if there's some inside information to be like, oh yeah, you guys said this. Remember that? Like that's a no-no.
Remember when you said Tony Khan does a line before every show? Yeah, we paid attention to that.
I remember you posted that picture of Bray Wyatt burning and you said Richard Pryor colorized. Yeah.
Oh my god.
We saw that.
And we told Twitter about that. That's why
I remember that one. Remember that well. I like it.
All right, man. Well, this has been amazing. Before we get up out of here, Chris, of course, you know that you're always welcome. You're always very kind to us, and you're always a pleasure to have. You know what I'm saying, on our show. Please give us your Twitter. Tell the people where they can find you, locate you, everything.
Yeah, it's at the Dunniverse. And just follow me if you can, and just keep listening and watching this show. It's awesome. And anytime you guys need a guest, hit me up. I'm always down to talk to you.
Big action, man. We appreciate that, man.
Oh, and by the way, before we go, one thing. My future, I think my girlfriend's Jamaican family really enjoyed the Bodman Chris nickname you gave me last time.
Yes.
Bodman Chris.
Yeah. So it's very over.
You got to get it on like an ugly sweater during Christmas or something like that, or like, you know, holiday season or whatever. You don't get it right.
Bodman Chris don't do no eggnog. Yeah. Like,
trying to learn a lot of terms, like don't mess with your little friends then. So
well, we appreciate that.
Trying to learn. So
that's hard, man. Well, we got damn, you know what? We'll talk about that off camera. But yeah, this has been dope. This has been fun. This has been great. We appreciate you taking time. It's probably longer than we allotted. So thank you so much for being so generous. And like that, we go.
See you guys.